In today's video, I want to talk about 7 lessons that we learned this year while running a home embroidery business. Of course, these are not in any particular order, but these are all experiences that we actually saw firsthand. And I'm pretty sure some of you have seen some of these similar situations also. And if you're just starting out with your embroidery business, this is definitely something you are quickly going to encounter. And of course, if there are any lessons that you learned this year, okay, make sure you drop them down in the comments. That way we can share all sorts of personal stories and different situations that we all encounter too. Let's start with lesson learned number 1. And this is what I call inventory in stock. So prior to this year, I would say it was very common to order blanks on demand, meaning as soon as you needed your blank, you can place your order, and the possibility of that product, that size, that color, anything that you needed, the possibility of it being available was very high. So what's happening right now is with a lot of the popular brands and the popular colors is the items are pretty much non-existent. For example, our number 1 product here, I would say, is the Flex Fit 6227 and the black. And there was a time where that hat was pretty much non-existent, okay? And we actually went a couple weeks without the product. So we took a hit, okay? We took a hit. And now, as soon as our inventory starts going down, okay, instead of ordering by the dozens as before, okay, we're ordering by the hundreds now. We want to make sure that the product that we carry, our most popular items, we have it ready to go. So I will say with lesson number 1 is you have to identify your most popular garment and you have to go 100% on that garment. So this is where you have to make a big judgment call. You have to know how much inventory you need, because at the same time, okay, so there's also a drawback. You don't want to buy too much where now you're stuck with inventory that you can't sell. Okay, so you got to find your sweet spot. You got to know how much items you're going to sell. Okay, we kind of forecast on a quarterly basis. All right, so I'm looking at anywhere how much items do I need, maybe forecasting all the way to 3 to 4 months. All right, let's go with lessons learned number 2. That is avoid unprepared customers. One of the most time-consuming portion of the entire production process is going back and forth the initial phase with a customer. What I'm talking about here with unprepared customers, these are customers that do not have all their information ready to go. So logos, colors, fonts, you're constantly going to encounter, okay, people with amazing ideas, okay? They have $1 million ideas, which is always a good thing, but you have to have certain items ready to go. For example, their logo has to be ready to go, okay? Sometimes you're going to have a customer that's going to explain to you what they want. So now you have to start analyzing, brainstorming whatever is on their mind. All right, so what you want to do, you want to avoid that. Now, if you're a graphic designer, if you actually sell graphic design services, you make logos, you can actually charge for all that service. All right, that's great. But if you're not a graphic designer, if that's not your specialty, if that's not your expertise, you want to stay away from somebody that doesn't have their artwork ready. So in a perfect world, you're going to have a customer that has everything laid out, ready to go. They already know which garment they want. They already got the colors picked out, logo ready to go. All right, but that's not always the case. Now, of course, we're always going to be there, all right, to guide them, to help them, make sure that every step is going correctly. But what you want to avoid is have to guide them and hold their hand every small little detail where they don't have information ready to go. A lot of this information all comes down to the initial order form. Okay, there's certain questions that have to be answered correctly in order for you to move on to the next step of the production. All right, but a big thing you want to know, a big question you want to ask is, do you have your logo ready? Because you don't want to go back and forth trying to confirm certain information that's not confirmed on their side. All right, so avoid unprepared customers. That's what it means, okay? Of course, you're not going to have a customer with everything perfectly laid out, okay? Of course, we're going to help them. But if they're coming with nothing on hand, just ideas in their brain, you're going to have to tell them, hey, you're going to have to link up with a graphic designer, get everything ready, all right? That's only if you don't provide graphic designing work. But as embroiderers, All right, we expect our customers to already have their logos ready. Let's go with lessons learned number 3. And this is kind of like a continuation from the previous one, all right? But this one is have your prices ready. Now, of course, you cannot have one price guide that's gonna fit all, okay? Different projects require different prices, but you at least have to have a standard price sheet. For example, I'm always going to use hats because hats is what we do, hats is what I know. So for example, when I'm trying to set up a contract, I have a standard hat that we use with a standard logo, and I give them the price based off that standard information. And it also includes add-ons. Do they need a logo on the side of the hat, on the back of the hat? What else? What other features do they need? So now we have a standard where we can base our prices off. Okay, now the big thing, let me tell you the biggest benefit of that. You can easily avoid a customer that's looking for the cheapest prices available. Okay, so if you give them a standard price, say, hey, our prices start here, and they're looking for a price all the way down here, okay, you just saved yourself from future headaches. Okay, moving on. Lessons learned number 4. What is your superpower? Meaning you have to have a specialty. Your shop, as a small home embroidery business, you have to have a specialty. What are you known for? It is not possible, okay? It is not possible to master everything about embroidery. Because no matter what, if you accept all type of work, okay, you're going to continue being challenged, which sometimes is good, okay? It's no problem being challenged with certain projects. But if every project you do requires research, requires you to get out of your comfort zone, then it becomes a problem. The biggest benefit of specializing in something is you don't have to recreate the wheel. You've already done all the experimentation possible on a certain garment. You already know the do's and the don'ts. So for example, let's say we do hats, right? Every day we do hats, and all of a sudden I'm gonna start accepting graduation sashes. Now in reality, that's a very basic project, but if you're not used to doing graduation sashes, or you're not used to working with a certain type of material, you might struggle to figure it out. And by the time you figured it out, all right, you've already lost the profit margin in that job. So lesson number 4, find your superpower and be known for your superpowers. And also you can add a secondary superpower. So of course, our thing, hats, okay? I love to do hats, but I also have a secondary superpower, which I would say is polo shirts. What I would recommend is find a secondary specialty that complements your main superpower, okay? So for us, it's polo shirts, all right? I love hats, I love polo shirts. It's a perfect combination. Usually if somebody's ordering hats, of course, it only makes sense for me to send them all my information that I have on polo shirts. And that's vice versa. If somebody's ordering polo shirts, of course, I'm gonna offer hats. Lesson learned number 5. This is another big one. Okay, this one here took me a while to accept. Okay, I didn't want to accept this for the longest, and that is learn to say no. I used to think if I were to say no to a potential customer, I was pretty much leaving money on the table, and I was pretty much losing on future projects. Okay, projects that can lead to something bigger and better. But what was happening when I was accepting pretty much any job that was presented to me, a lot of times I would find myself out of my comfort zone. I was doing projects that I had no interest in. And that's one of the biggest things that will burn you out, is you doing projects that you have no interest, that you don't even like to do. Okay, we all have that certain project that we don't like to do. All right, it's just human nature. All right, there's certain stuff we don't like to do. You always want to work on your best, most funnest projects. All right, stuff that you know, stuff that you like. And also saying no kind of falls back on our previous lessons, right? If somebody's not prepared, you have to be ready to say no. If a job doesn't make sense, you have to know when to say no. Especially expectations. If somebody needs something in X amount of days and you know it's not possible, okay, you can't make stuff just happen, right? You can't just speed up anything that's out of your control, right? So anytime you feel like that project cannot be completed, and whatever the criteria is, whether it's turnaround, whether it's speed, pricing, you have to draw a line. You have to know when to say no. And if you're working on projects that you like to do, of course the customer benefits because he's going to get the best work possible. So of course, number 5, big one, learn to say no. Okay, lessons learned. Number 6. This is one that I call learn, practice, present. So you're learning, you're practicing, and you're selling. You're selling by presenting. Okay, it has to be in that order. You cannot start presenting, you cannot start selling before you learned and you practiced. It is very common. It is very common. You're going to see this in all the groups. Somebody's going to ask for help. They maybe just got a new order, right? They'll say, hey, I got a new order, 200 polos on this material. Can somebody help me? This is my first polo shirt job. You never want to be in a position where you take on a big project and it's something you've never worked on. Okay, when it comes to flex fit, I've bought every flex fit available. I know how every flex fit feels, and I have a sample of all the flex fits. So when it comes time for learning, practice, selling, okay, I already know all the answers on the flex fit. Okay, and of course, there's new challenges, new questions always arise. So it's a never-ending learning experience. Okay, so I mentioned this one on number 6 because no matter how good you are, you're always going to be learning. But we have to learn in a certain time frame. There's no skipping steps. Okay, so the biggest lessons learned here is before selling any item, make sure you've learned it, you've practiced it, and now you are ready to sell it. Now, this is what I want to add on this lesson number 6. Okay, when you're experimenting, you're not just experimenting for the fun of it, right? A big benefit that you're getting is you're producing samples. Okay, and so now you have samples to show your potential customers. So a lot of this time learning and all this time sampling and practicing, it all comes back times 2 because now you have something to show for. You have sample, you have product samples that you have. That way, anytime you have to present, you're ready to go. You already have everything laid out. You've already done the groundwork. Lesson learned number 7 is controlling your expenses. Now that one there sounds very basic, right? But let me kind of break it down a little bit. So one of the most popular formula ever created, right, is your total profit equals total sales minus total expenses. All right, so you're always going to see people saying, hey, I've sold X amount, right? I've sold this amount of money, right? But a lot of that information, it says nothing, okay? It says nothing if you don't say how much was your expenses. You can make millions of dollars, all right? You can make millions of dollars. But if your expenses is $1 million, you pretty much made zero. One thing that I learned this year is that your expenses has to be as low as possible without sacrificing any of your quality. Okay, so that's the big one there. One thing that we did here at the shop that we started doing, we're ordering supplies in the beginning of the month. Okay, so we already anticipate what do we need for this month. And the reason why I like to buy everything at the beginning of the month, that way when I'm tracking expenses, everything is all in one invoice. The least amount of invoices you have at the end of the year, okay, the easier it is to do all your accounting stuff. This is when specializing in a specific skill and having that superpower plays a major role, because when you're buying supplies, when you're buying consumables, so I'm going to use hats as an example. I'm buying all my consumables that revolves around hats. Okay, I already know what consumables I'm going to need. The reason why having a specialty plays a big role, because you can afford to buy as much inventory and consumables for whatever your specialty is. But what happens is if you're all over the place offering everything under the sun, now you have to buy more consumables, more blanks, and you're all over the place with expenses. Okay, so if you narrow your superpower, your specialty, okay, into as narrow as you can get, okay, you don't want to be too narrow, but you want to kind of be narrowed to the point where when you buy blanks, okay, at the end of the year, you're not stuck with blanks that didn't sell or with blanks that you have no intentions to sell. So controlling your expenses, forecasting, and we forecast what we're going to spend depending on our specialty. So the more you're specialized, the more you can forecast. So I'll keep it very basic here because of course we can get very deep in the accounting side. All right. But the main thing is control and track your expenses and avoid. Okay. Big thing here is avoid unnecessary blanks at the end of the year. And you avoid unnecessary blanks, unnecessary fabric, unnecessary stuff that's just gonna collect dust. You avoid that by specializing in a specific garment. So those are 7 lessons that we learned this year while running a home embroidery business. But if you have any lessons that you learned this year, I would love for you to put them down in the comments so we can all learn from everybody's different types of situation. Okay, let us know what your specialty is, what do you do, and what did you learn this year? That way we can all learn from each other and we could gain more information. All right, thank you for stopping by today. See you on the next one. Peace out.